In this new burgeoning science called neuroscience, they're discovering that there is a very good, positive, profound link between physical fitness and cognitive fitness. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit today. There is also, in the minds of many who are looking at the future, is imagining that we're sort of like, in cognitive fitness, we're like where we were in 1960s with physical fitness. So that there are some believing that there will be the attention on cognitive fitness that we have seen on physical fitness and the incredible effect that that's had on longevity. Now, you might ask me, how did I come to be looking at the questions around learning and longevity? And one of the things is that in my own history, I've always been interested in interdisciplinary education. I've got an arts background, philosophy background, and I've had a proclivity to always starting new things. And so going into this area of learning and longevity was boosted by something that was happening that appeared in the New York Times in 2007. They did an article. This was at the time I had just had finished the startup with San Francisco State's Osher Institute and was about ready to come to Berkeley 7 years ago. The New York Times came out with an article that was done by the RAND Corporation. And it was a longitudinal study to understand longevity in all the various countries. What were all the various factors? And they were looking at what is the social factor. And they found above race, above class, above everything else, the key social factor to longevity was education. The top. And so what many of you have already heard me say at different points is that I believe that learning and lifelong learning is a really undervalued, underutilized public health strategy. And so I met with Berkeley's new dean of public health yesterday to talk with him about where I thought our issues were synergistic. And he said, I thought when you said lifelong learning, you were talking about everyone. Interesting. I said, well, we will be talking about everyone. But it is true that longevity right now for us is coming as the bonus 30 years, post-retirement, whatever that age is. And so I think that what is ahead of us in this presentation is information that is going to be helpful for people of any age. It happens that it is kind of cued in to what is happening to older adults. But I'm hoping that what you hear and jump on today will be helpful to you as grandparents and mentors, and the other ways in which you find yourself as someone with incredible experience and skill conveying to people about the value of learning. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cover several areas. I'm going to start with a little bit of science, and it's going to be science that probably most of you have heard. But I want to just cover a few basic concepts where there is real consensus among scientists and educators and health practitioners. And I want to take that science and put in what I call an integrative model that basically takes into account that cognitive fitness happens not only in the brain, but in the body and in the human spirit and emotions. So we'll talk about that briefly. And then I have the great pleasure and honor of the work that I've been doing here with all of you, some of you, and hopefully all of you in the future, is take those insights from neuroscience and place them in the context of the OLLI experience. Place it, but also build the foundation of how we're making decisions about the kinds of things that we want to be doing within OLLI. And we'll talk about curriculum briefly, pedagogy, the learning community, that kind of thing. All of it, obviously, is under the banner of the joy of learning. One of the things that Mr. Osher has been very adamant about is that we understand that learning is joyful. It's exciting. It puts us in the world in a whole new way with agency. So I not only included the visuals of riding the wave as the longevity wave, right? As the thing that's going to be changing this century, maybe more than any other phenomena. I also do it because I want to give a nod to Mr. Osher, who in his mid-80s has begun to learn to surf. Don't you think that that's a pretty incredible feat? Having tried to belly up on a surfboard, there is actually a video of him online, which you can see, which is very impressive. Okay, quickly, OLLI at UC Berkeley, we are a part of the university. I report to the Vice Provost for Teaching and Learning, Academic Planning, and Facilities. And the program, our Osher Institute, is a part of 117 Osher Institutes that exist within universities and colleges nationwide. And the OLLI program, I hope you all will grab a brochure and take a look next week. On Tuesday in Freight and Salvage from 10 to 12, we'll have the spring lineup. You can meet the spring faculty. The summer faculty will also be here, 27 courses this term. Interest circles are peer-to-peer teaching, and that is going to begin. We're planning for the summer. The speaker series, this is the 5th. There will be another talk next week at University Hall at the same time with Jane Wellman on higher education finance. I want to mention travel. We have 20 of us who are going to Berlin with Rhodes Scholar and 2 of our faculty from a course on Berlin that we taught in the fall. And we've extended that deadline. So if any of you are interested in going to Berlin, please consider that. In this particular trip of folks, we have 6 people who are returning to Berlin after having visited Berlin in the 1960s. So it'll be an interesting group to go with. And then to mention the evaluation and research part of OLLI, we evaluate everything we do. There are, all of our courses, the peer-to-peer teaching. We are about understanding in a very proactive and aggressive way how older adults learn. The first thing to begin to look at when we talk about cognitive fitness is what some people who do pedagogy or pedagogy for adults, which I guess is called andragogy, is that you've got to unlearn some things that you learned. And I was resistant to that unlearn concept, but I'm now realizing it's wisdom. When I've been talking about OLLI to other folks, I've encountered a few myths. And here's the one I hear the most. It's always said with humor, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But we're going to learn that people at any age can learn. And then we're going to learn that it's important that you do. I've learned everything I need to know. Somehow, the people saying that have somehow escaped Moore's law, and all the other things that are changing our society so quickly, how society is changing. The other thing I hear a lot is my genes are all that matter. And it is the old nature-nurture argument, and I think it's one probably best debunked. This particular statement is best debunked by UC Berkeley professor Marion Diamond, who in all of her work, including the dissection and analysis of Einstein's brain, has really looked at the environmental factors. So that's another one. And then I hear this. And I hear this a lot from the children of parents. Oh, they're fine. They're playing bridge. They're doing Sudoku. They're doing their crossword puzzles every day. And what you're going to learn from us today is that it's good. That's fun. And if you've done it all the time, okay. And if you've never done any of those things, definitely try them. But if you have done them for a long time, the thing is to change up. And we're going to talk about that a bit more. Because what's happened is that those things have become a habit of mind. So, in looking at the dog, we're going to take a look at the science. Very simple. And very different than the science you heard in the previous 4 lectures here. And I'm seeing Alan here, the great physicist. This is not going to be hard science. We're going to go into just a few basic concepts. Has everybody heard about neurogenesis and neuroplasticity? The ability of the mind to continue to sort of reorganize and regenerate itself. Well, thanks to MRI technology and EEGs, we can see this. This is really exciting stuff. And what you can see there in that circle at the top is the synapse, which is where the real energy of the brain begins to make the connections. The other term that I want you to be aware of is cognitive reserve. You will hear cognitive reserve for people who are concerned about dementia. That what happens is that you want your brain and all the synapses and the neural pathways to be fully charged, and then some of those that begin to age, you want them to find new routes and recruit old ones that may not be used or help to develop new ones. And one of the best things around cognitive reserve is that it does postpone the onset of dementia, but it also looks at how, this particular slide, helps you look at how the brain coordinates among the different parts of the brain, the prefrontal cortex and then the motor cortex. And what you see, I think, is the communication that goes on in the brain with the body and the emotions. It is quite exquisite. And we will return to this idea of cognitive reserve in a moment. Recall. And recall is an issue for everybody. And part of this is obviously because there is so much information to take in. How do you possibly think about what to pay attention to? How do you code it? How do you store it? And then, so that you can retrieve it. This is as much an issue for my ADHD son as it is for, OLLI's 90-year-old members. Some people call it short-term memory loss. Marion Diamond, again, to quote her, calls it recall. And she calls it recall because she says the memories haven't gone anywhere. They're just, you have to find a way to retrieve them. So, for the moment, how many of you are taking notes? Okay, very good. All of you, with a pen. Hold up your pen that you're writing with. Okay, very good. Move it to the other hand. And on your piece of paper in front of you, please write your name. And for all of you who don't have a pen, do it with your hand. Your left hand, right hand, the opposing hand. But it's better to do on paper. Now, the reason why I have you do that exercise, because I think you see how awkward it feels, right? Well, that has helped you enter into the zone called cognitive uncertainty. And what happens in cognitive uncertainty is that you've sent a different signal to the brain. And when you do that, learning happens. And so we want to think about that sensation that you've just had as, in some sense, one of the goals we want to set for ourselves around how do we begin to think about embracing new experiences, challenging episodes, how we embrace what is not known to us right now. And since we know a lot, that is a big challenge. Now, one of the things I want you to do when you go home, does everybody use a computer? And everybody use a mouse? Put that mouse on the other side. Honestly, give it a try. I've been doing it for several years now because I try to find all these little tricks to do. And every time anyone in my office comes to use my computer, it's the first thing they do is move it over to the right-hand side. But there's all sorts of different things that one can do to sort of tweak. Yes? That's a good idea. I haven't reprogrammed. But I am, and I will definitely take a look at that, because that would be an interesting challenge to try. Well, see, you don't want another workaround. You want to continue to challenge yourself. See how smart we are? All right, so here's what I want to do. Around recall, attention coding, storage, and retrieval is just mention that one of the first studies that OLLI at Berkeley did is that we went to the Botero exhibit. Did anyone see the Botero exhibit at the Berkeley Art Museum? They were incredibly moving, upsetting, large paintings of the terror and torture that was happening in Abu Ghraib. Everybody's response was, that's challenging, I don't want to look at it. And we took 27 members there who, in fact, were given the assignment. Stay there in front of the painting that is giving you the most trouble, stay with it. And record your feelings and let us know about that experience. And so this we wrote up, submitted to a journal and accepted. And it is a lot about the kind of experience we want to encourage with how we approach art or other things that kind of shock our senses, is to figure out how you can develop a new relationship to that and learn from it. There's also, you guys probably have your own methods around remembering someone's name or remembering a date. Has anyone ever tried mnemonics? Yeah, anybody ever try to sort of emotionally code something? One of the things that I urge people to do inside the OLLI classroom is not only to take notes, but also to think about what you want to share later that night over dinner or when your family is together. Sharing what you're learning also gives you a goal, which will help you code and retrieve that information. All right, we are going to move to what I call an integrative health model. I'm going to go through this very quickly. This itself could be a year-long study, but I want to touch a number of very important points around how to think about cognitive fitness. And I want to say, as you can see right there in the middle, you are the absolute best guide and coach for yourself around what it is to change up and do things differently, and the kinds of challenges that you need. So this is to be very subjective. And many of you, I'm sure, do the various things that are recommended here. The physical aspects around cognitive fitness responds extremely well to exercise, to cardio, but also to what's called complex exercise. In the instance of what complex exercise means, it is the coordination of upper body and lower body. It is dancing, it is swimming, it is playing sports. It is, interestingly enough, as someone who's on the elliptical machine in my house and at the club, it is less about elliptical exercise because you're not very mindful. You know, I mean, you're there on the elliptical reading something. But what is most helpful is when your foot is receiving information, like in hiking or walking or running or dancing especially, that is sending different signals to your brain so that your brain is cluing in. Uneven terrain, move, balance this way. So think about the mindful, complex exercise that you can do. Many of you heard about diet from Dr. Bruce Ames last week. He talked very passionately about supplements and about the vitamins and minerals that is missing from our diet. I won't repeat that now. I want to turn your attention to hearing. And hearing is the phenomena that we've increasingly become very concerned about. And part of it's because of its underreporting. The Johns Hopkins has just come out with some new statistics saying that 2/3 of people over 70 have some loss of hearing. 2/3. And that for folks over 80, it's 90%. And what's really important about that is that they're now beginning to link the loss of hearing with the early onset of dementia. So that is something we do want to pay attention to. Sleep, Allison Harvey from psychology has spoke to our OLLI crowd before about the importance of 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. Lifestyle, I think all of us have been clued in around the smoking and moderate drinking. And then the physical well-being is obviously manage, our lifelong illnesses if we have them. Make sure that we're as healthy as we can be in the physical sense, and then understanding how that will affect mental acuity. The thing this is interesting, because this anecdote was given to me. A man goes to his doctor, reports that his wife can't hear him. So the doctor says, all right, go home and try this. Man goes home. He stands 20 feet behind his wife, who's got her back to him at the sink. He says, what are we having for dinner? No response. He gets 10 feet closer. What are we having for dinner? No response. He comes up alongside her and says, what are we having for dinner? And she says, for the third time, chicken. That. And most people who come in for hearing tests say it's because a spouse told them. So hearing, very, very important. And then obviously the ode to dancing. The spirit, and this is the spirit kind of encompassing emotions, mindset. We've done a lot of, had a variety of course offerings at OLLI about, the positive mindset, sense of resilience. These are big topics. We can't get into them, but they are important to put the signposts out there. Stress reduction, I am told by people who are doing some of the Nobel Prize winning science on telomeres, they are looking at stress reduction. They think for aging boomers, this is actually going to be very key. And interestingly enough, this year is the first time that many have noted that the Alzheimer's Association is looking at meditation. They've been very resistant to get the message out that there's something you can do around postponing the onset of dementia. But now they offer one of the best CDs I've listened to on meditation. And it's a meditation, I think it's like 12 and a half minutes that you can do once a day with incredible results, which they are studying. The other thing is that we have a variety of things that we've been offering at OLLI. Amelia Barilli, who's a Spanish professor, has been teaching neuroplasticity with us on the impact around volunteering. And then our Center for the Greater Good has been looking at stress reduction that happens when you help someone else out. That reduces your stress. Who would know? Self-efficacy, this is just the belief in our sense of ability and exigency. To maintain that. And then obviously the social engagement. And I have to say that in the literature that I've been reading around this, is that this is something that we really need to encourage the men in our lives to stay socially connected, keep their network of friends up. And I know I have seen that happen in my own family. Where older friends who pass away, and then my husband doesn't replace his 3 closest friends. And I think that that's something is very important around cognitive fitness. And then Jason, who helped me put this presentation together, wanted to just include that to say, see, more than Susan are talking about meditation and other things. So let's go to the mind. What are the various things that we can do to take a look at developing new skills? One of the things that has been a priority for us is to look at all the new forms of technology and try them out. I think that in addition to the longevity revolution, there is this digital revolution. And so there are a whole slew of things that can be done there. It is learning a new language. If it's a musical language or a language, or learning the digital language, all of that is important skills to develop. I have memory here, but this is the same as recall. What are the various things that we can do that helps us code, store, and retrieve the things that we are experiencing? One of the things that I do around memory, and this is one of the things that's begun to happen when I go off to conferences and things like that, is that when I take notes, I'm now taking notes more like I'm mapping the ideas. So I use a bigger piece of paper, I start with a central idea, and then I begin to sort of map stuff out. And anything that you can find that gives you a better visual orientation to the material is one way to code the information and retrieve it. Attention, we've talked about, and processing speed. I don't know how many people were here for Adam Gazzaley's talk about the lab that he has at UCSF. He has developed a video game that is specifically looking at multitasking, for one, and how the different parts of the brain are coordinating. He's also, and he looked at the fact that the multitasking has a deficit. that if in fact you're doing two things at once, they're suffering. Your efficiency is suffering by a certain percentage. But he also showed that if you train yourself to multitask, you can be incredibly effective. And part of that training that I think is most available to us right now are the things like the brain games that are online, the things with Lumosity and Posit Science. They're fun to try out. And if you've never picked up a video game console from your son or daughter, try it. Ask them to teach you. Because all of that is going to be foreign territory. The other thing is that we've got to be mindful of the executive functions. And I think at this point, my urging is for people to be an activist learner, which is really set a goal for yourself. When you come into the classroom, what is it you want to learn about? And also know that it's not just what you're learning, it's how you're learning. So that we're being self-conscious about both the form and the function and the content. The other thing is to urge you to use all your senses. One of the things that happens over a lifetime is that we gravitate to the sense that is delivered for us the most effectively over a lifetime. So when I started off with the neurolinguists about dancers move, musicians listen, it's important that you also change out of those modalities. So if you find that you're a good listener, well, try to be somebody who keeps their head up walking and really take things in and be self-conscious about what you're seeing. I think some of you know that I taught a course last year with the Berkeley Art Museum Pacific Film Archive on silence. And one of our goals, objectives in that class was to begin to have people hear silence, see silence, experience silence. And so we had meditation inside the class. We had exercises where we asked people after the end of the class if they could report on what they were seeing and hearing and experiencing. It's just a very enriched way to think about all the various ways in which you take in stimuli and how you respond to it. So I've mentioned a couple of tools, the brain fitness software, most of them have things that are free and online. The music and language instruction, I'm increasingly seeing very positive remark about Rosetta Stone. I bought Rosetta Stone to learn Spanish, but I think they're using kind of the latest research around how people learn. Fun to play with. Monitoring devices. Does anyone wear a monitoring device of any kind? You do. What do you wear? Pedometer, so she's getting steps. I wear a Jawbone, which is also about steps, but it's also about how many hours you sleep at night and when it was interrupted. People wear heart monitors. Well, there's also a thing called heart math. And so if you're interested in the biofeedback, heart math is something that's monitoring how your heart rate and your breathing are being coordinated. And it's a very helpful thing around stress. They also have a desktop model as well. And then we've got video games. And I think we're all really looking forward to what happens in the Gazali lab and the commercial enterprises that come out of that as they're looking at specific parts of the brain. But here, this is among the most important things I'll be saying today, is the concept of change up. Get out of your habit of mind when you're self-conscious about how you're thinking about something. Good, that's usually fairly wise. But then think, okay, how else might I approach this issue, this thought? Everybody has a learning style. Be aware what your learning style is. If you're a kinetic learner and you've got to learn by doing, you continue that, but also think maybe, okay, how could I hear the instructions verbally and respond? Think about the other senses and change up with that. And this doesn't always have to, it's not like a heavy assignment. This novelty, challenge, and variety. Marian Diamond, who I've mentioned, she and her husband have just become residents of Lake Park. And she is authoring a column in their newsletter that comes out once a month. She did a column several months ago about wearing a hat. I know, here's this brain scientist, wear a hat. She said, yeah, put a hat on and you will experience something new. There'll be this physical message about the hat. You'll play with it. You'll do something else. It'll be a kind of novelty, challenge, and variety. I mean, there could be other things. What else could you do? Glasses. You could put glasses on, maybe with a nose. No, I don't. But just something that takes you to someplace else. The thing that I do is I try to take a new route home, as one of the things, because you get into this tunnel. Just be aware of that kind of stuff. This thing as well, Prezi is the software that you're seeing. I know there's been a lot of motion to it, but it's a new thing for me to try out. And so I think there's a lot of things like that you can change up and try out. And here's the thing that we get to experience at OLLI every day is how the wisdom of older learners and what their strength is. Berkeley faculty and other experts who teach with us are amazed at how highly motivated, focused, and outcome-oriented OLLI members are. It is why they continue to return to teaching with us. They also note the greater variety of abilities and experiences and this thing called pattern recognition. How the accumulation of all that lifetime of skills and experiences. The other thing that I've noticed is that there is a better coordination between left and right brain, and that there is this incredible creative potential, creative expression for older adults. So I think the thing then just to mention is that let's be aware of short-term memory and recall issues, processing speed. That's one thing that the video games and other things will help out with. It's also something, the integration and visual spatial learning is something that we're looking at right now around driving, because we know that this has been a key issue, and so we'll probably have some opportunities for OLLI members to take an updated driver training course. Watch out for sidewalk curbs, that kind of thing. This has not been explored enough is the medication interference for whatever we're taking. It often has can have a cognitive side effect. You've heard me talk about loss of hearing and then attention span. So let's go on. All right, so I have my own cognitive fitness plan, and many of the people working in this area are urging people, to design your own cognitive fitness plan. But I have designed one for OLLI at Berkeley. So how does applying this neuroscience, how in planning for it and playing with it, what kinds of things does it bring up for us around what we're doing? And I will explain. When we look at the curriculum, we look to find expert faculty because our members taking the courses, are they themselves experts? So being an expert doesn't have to be heavy-handed. It can be, for instance, in our spring term, Professor Linda Rugg from Scandinavian Studies is teaching one of her favorite classes on mystery thriller detectives, which she calls Murder on Ice. And that is a phenomenal class, because what you've got somebody who is an expert about Scandinavian culture. She's also studied, a lot of different things around cultural studies overall. But she'll be teaching something that just is inherently interesting. We also have folks like Dan Kamen, who come into the OLLI classroom to teach something that they're writing books about. And this is increasingly happening more. Tamim Ansari teaches classes with us. His book agent is thrilled. He comes out with a book on Islam, a book on Afghanistan. That kind of expert faculty who's interested in the interchange that goes on in the OLLI classroom is very much about cognitive fitness. The fact that we try to aim the curriculum very much to forward-looking issues is also about the fact that many of these issues are interdisciplinary and that they are relevant to your lives in the roles that you play. And so the issue of relevance and how you apply the knowledge is all a part of cognitive dissonance. So you could add also on this list, a third of our members still work. So being able to talk to Dan Kamen or to hear Robert Reich talk about income disparity or the economy, all of those things are useful in a variety of ways, depending on how you want to use them. One of the courses that we offer virtually every term is an experiential creative expression course that is the joy of singing. And that course also connects people to their breath. And it is profound. So that is another way in the curriculum. We also, in looking at pedagogy, just to mention that we're very learner initiated, so that what we're trying to intellectually and do sensory stimulation in the courses. We like interaction. We like for there to be teams, people working in teams. This happens in our German literature course. It happens in a positive psychology resilience course, teams. There is also, we ask faculty to have interaction in their courses, the Q&A. Experiential hands-on workshops. You'll see that we've got not only the hands-on workshops of the various arts and technology, but we also do a fair amount of field trips. This particular photograph, which I'll show you, is a field trip to the Lawrence lab to look at the various questions that was in the Future of Engineering course taught by Marty Pollard this past term. The use of technology is something that we're also very interested in, because as I said, it's a new language, getting more digital literacy. It is, in fact, the way in which Michael Fox teaches, to try to remind you in the discussion who is behind the camera, what are the decisions that are being made, so that you have a layered awareness around what the information you're receiving. And then we come to the learning community, which is an absolutely essential part of what we're doing, which is building individuals working in a collectivity. And here, this is where we're also trying to give the word about encouragement, so that it's peer-to-peer learning. We've got interest circles, we've got teaching each other. This particular term, I'm convening a course. It's a discussion course on a MOOC. Do people know what MOOCs are? Massive open online courses that are being developed for free. They're being developed for huge amounts of money, but for free. And so they've been developed primarily for undergraduates. We're getting in there to say, wait a minute, this is interesting content for people of all ages. Volunteering, as I've mentioned before, really incredibly important around cognitive fitness as an option. And within OLLI, there are so many different ways to get involved to help shape both the learning environment as well as the social environment. And again, men. We need to encourage more men to get involved. Engaging in research, our Fourth Age Salon, our members over 80 meet with me on a monthly basis. We have both speakers about the future, things that are happening that they want to understand better, things about aging. All the time, they are teaching me about what it's like to be 80, 90, and older and continue to learn. We also have an evaluation and research, and this is partly to give our members a say in everything that we do through the course evaluations and other evaluation mechanisms, but it's also to begin to take a step back and look at what is happening in a global way around lifelong learning. And so we're looking at things like age, gender, and racial diversity, and giving a global perspective to that. We're looking at volunteerism. 41% of our over 80 members volunteer. What are the learning benefits of volunteering? We're looking at the best learning environment for the hearing impaired, and how do we get the resources and the best technology to do that? How can our members be their own brain fitness coach is the point of this learning and longevity talk. How can we give you the tools in the learning environment where you can really better understand what you can do? And then I mentioned the massive open online course, which is, can this be an effective way to deliver information, but then open up the OLLI classroom for the discussion and the pursuit of some of the themes that they bring up. Just in closing, I think the most important thing to reiterate about cognitive fitness is the joy of learning, and to really continue to do what you feel passionate about. The fact that we're here at UC Berkeley, who could imagine a better intellectual playground than UC Berkeley? The world of ideas that we're invited into and the exchanges. So I leave you with the words change up, keep moving in a physical sense, mindfulness and stress reduction, get your hearing tested if you have any thoughts about your spouse isn't hearing you. Be your own coach, and most of all, believe in yourself and the value of engaging with others. I hope this talk is what you were expecting. I hope you will continue to be in dialogue with OLLI at Berkeley. Let us know. You're going to have other things, probably much more exciting and interesting things than I've recommended, around how to stay mentally, cognitively alert. And we now have 10 minutes to explore your thoughts and your questions. Gerard, it looks like there's a question immediate right there.
It's actually not a question. I just returned a great book to the Berkeley Library called What Makes Olga Run.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've heard about it. She is a 93-year-old British Columbian woman who started running track at age 77. And she is phenomenal. So this gentleman kind of did this book about what makes her run. And because some of her goals are to keep moving, to be a mensch, to if you don't love something, don't do it. She does Sudoku. And she was one of 11 children in the middle, and she's the only one still alive. But she grew up on a farm in Saskatchewan, but I think you should all read it. It's a wonderful book.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that book. We had a course this past winter term with Walter Bortz, who has his own theory of aging, which he calls the thermodynamics of aging, which is all about movement and metabolism. Your question.
Hi, I'm a graphic designer, do a lot of web work, and I've made, as you might imagine, dozens of PowerPoint presentations which are linear and sequential. So I was wondering about your experience of building your presentation with this nonlinear medium.
What I start with is, everybody can access this online. It's called brain mapping. And so what I do, and I did this, I've got a presentation on hearing that I do. I start with the idea in the middle, and then I just start to move outward and see the ways in which the various points are related to each other and how they build. And so I like this. I'm also a filmmaker. So it's a chance to kind of be able to display information, see its sequentialness. Is that a word? And then, it prompts me, to say, know what's going to be happening next. So thank you for that comment. I hope, did it work for most people? Okay, did you like it better than PowerPoint? Do you hate PowerPoint? Okay. All right, yes. The next question is where? Yes.
I'd like to encourage people to, if they're getting their hearing checked, to explore beyond the hearing aid. There's and I'll probably pronounce this incorrectly, but there's a condition called otosclerosis that's something that comes generally to women as they reach menopause age, but could affect men as well, where there's a certain bone in the middle ear that degrades, and it can be replaced. I happened to meet a gentleman from Iran who was a superb musician, and he was losing his hearing. So he had his one of the middle ear bones, both of them actually, replaced so that he could continue to be a musician. So a really good EENT might explore whether it's, just get a hearing aid or consider some repair.
Great. Thank you.
Susan, to your right.
Over to the right. One of the things that we've been working on is looping the classrooms so that there's not only speaker, a sound system in the classrooms, but also a looping technology. So for people who have to wear hearing aids, you can turn on your T-coil and hear crystal clear the presenter. Your question.
My question relates to the brain training fitness programs.
Yes.
I think I read maybe several years ago that there wasn't, research didn't show much effect. Is there different research now?
Right. What you're referring to is an article, I think, that came out, the BBC did a piece about saying that none of the brain software had proven, but there has been competing studies, and I'm not a promoter of brain training software overall, but there has been studies that they themselves have done, so it's industry-sponsored studies, that they're very effective around the visual and spatial processing, and so that's why some of the insurance companies have picked up with the life insurance and driver's insurance have picked up on some of these cognitive fitness games. But so they're good at that, and they're also good at some of the ways in which to increase short-term memory. It has to be, you have to do it over an 8-week period of time for so many hours a week, and it sounded to me in the literature that the industry has sponsored that it has a period of effectiveness of around 8 months, 6 to 8 months. So I think there are people like Laura Karstensen at Stanford, who runs the Longevity Center. She was the one person who was very much counter in the BBC article about the brain fitness software. I think I would take it with not a great deal of spirit of seriousness, but with a sense of play. I mean, I think it's like video games. It's something this is new for us. it's, play with it. Yes.
In the back.
Oh, thank you. You mentioned something about the resources and the benefit enrichment of being near the university. Could you tell us more about what things the university offers that we can take advantage of?
In addition to the OLLI at Berkeley.
Yes, like classes or
One thing that
library?
the Bancroft Library is open to anyone. You can go and read anything there, but you can't take anything out. You have to be a student to do that. But I think that, and during the summer, we work with summer sessions, and anybody who is interested in auditing any of the classes up on campus, you can, I think the membership for the summer is $50, and you can go and audit among 3,000 courses. I think they limit the language instruction courses or the lab classes because those really have a capacity issue. There's that. I think the university has a tremendous amount to offer us, and I think that OLLI at Berkeley is really lucky that we are taken so seriously. In being a part of the Vice Provost's office, I'm working with other senior leaders on campus about learning issues. And I think that they're very interested in the kinds of things that we're learning. And I think our older members are so articulate that I think everybody is gaining from the insight. Okay, I've got one more minute. Is there... Right.
Surfer video.
Yes.
The surfer video.
The surfer video is, well, there's a number of surfer movies that are out there right now about 80-year-olds. Mr. Osher, you can look at, pardon?
You promised us.
Oh, well, I don't have it right now up here. You can go to YouTube and see Bernard Osher taken to the surfboard. One final question?
Yes, and do you have any numbers on what percentage of people prescribed hearing aids actually wear them? In my experience, I know so many people who find it so difficult to start, often because they've waited too long. And they never acclimate to it. And you have to use them regularly right away.
Right. If I had another job, it would be to be on the public policy bandwagon around hearing. Because with all of us having this kind of hearing difficulty in the future, the world better change. And I think we've got to lay that policy work and accessibility right away. Thank you, everybody, for being here.